the United States has formally withdrawn from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty with Russia. And the U.S. military is preparing to test a new non nuclear mobile launched cruise missile developed specifically to challenge the Russians in Europe, according to a senior U.S. defense official. We're out of that treaty now, thanks to Trump and his buddy, Putin. Putin doesn't give a fuck about treaties. He's like Trump. Treaty schmeedy. He doesn't care about treaties. And he has Trump by the balls somehow, some way. It'd be nice if someday we understand what it is that Putin has where he can manipulate Trump at any time he wants to. I mean, what Trump is doing with China, as we're recording this today, the Dow was down 800 points. There's no telling how it winds up the day. But the Chinese premier also knows that Trump is a chump. He's a useful idiot. But Putin, especially, I don't think Xi, the Chinese leader, gives a shit about Trump or really the United States or about missiles, because I think Xi knows that it's just a matter of time before his fascist government, his fascist society becomes a global superpower. It is now, but I mean the number one global superpower. The 20th century belonged to America, right? And we certainly fucking killed enough people to make that point, didn't we? The 21st century belongs to China. They haven't started the mass killings yet, like the United States did during the 20th century, or the Brits did during the 19th century, or the Russians did during their little corner of the 20th century. But it will happen. So China isn't really paying a whole lot of attention to all this garbage shit that comes out of the urine-soaked president of the United States. They know what they're dealing with. They let this fool babble on as much as he wants to. In the meantime, they turn the screw. And what they did today, devalued their currency. And as a result of that, because of the wondrous mechanisms of the so-called free market, hundreds of thousands, no, millions of Trump supporters who have their little 401ks that they've been counting on to carry them until they fucking die and go into oblivion. All of those Trump supporters are going to see their stock portfolios tank. Not stock portfolios that they put together with astute investing. Oh shit, no. These are Trump supporters. They can't find their asses with both hands in a roadmap and a compass and Waze. They can't do it. This was money that the companies they worked for, instead of giving them a retirement fund, a guaranteed income, they said, well, we'll put it into a 401k for you, which is really mutual funds, which is the stock market, and that'll be your nest egg. And a lot of these fuckers who decided to destroy unions because, nobody wants to be part of a union, went along with it. And now, you dumb fucks, now you're going to find out why a union is so important and why Trump is a threat to your very existence. Aside from the fact that you better not go out to a shopping mall or a theater or someplace for dinner or a concert because you may be gunned down by a Trump supporter like you. Wouldn't that be ironic? No, you don't know what irony is, Trump supporter. Wouldn't that be a mind fuck? There, that's something you can understand. I digress. The U.S. withdrawal from this treaty puts an end to a landmark arms control agreement that had limited the development of ground based missiles with a range of 500 to 5,500 kilometers. And the fact that the U.S. has pulled out now means that we are about to embark on a new arms race. And, I forget the direct quote, but back in the 70s and 80s, a quote about the idea of preparing for war on a scale that would wipe out every living thing on the planet and then justify it by saying this is a means of avoiding war shows a type of collective insanity that I don't think the DSM-5 has a definition of what that kind of madness is. But it is insane. So that's where we're going now. And I read something the other day that said that right now, the United States is closer to a nuclear exchange with Russia than any time since the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. What? When I read that, I had to reread it. Like, what the fuck are they talking about? I reread the article, it became clear. The fascist Mike Pompeo, who is disguised as the U.S. Secretary of State or Foreign Minister, said in a statement Friday when he announced the withdrawal of the United States from that treaty. See, these powerful, fucked up white people make these decisions for all of us. But Pompeo said at the time, quote, Russia is solely responsible for the treaty's demise. He added, Russia failed to return to full and verified compliance through the destruction of its non-compliant missile system. I think what he's saying is the Russians were supposed to destroy a certain missile system, and so were we, but we don't do that. We just dictate to the rest of the world. You can't be a nuclear power. You can't be. You're one, but you got to get rid of it. Israel, oh, we'll pretend like we don't know anything about the 800 nuclear bombs that you have. Never mind. Quiet, Israel. But you other countries, we're telling you what to do. No. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said the end of the treaty is, quote, a serious setback. Stoltenberg said this, quote, the fact that we don't have the INF treaty anymore the fact that the Russians over the years have deployed new missiles which can reach European cities within minutes, which are hard to detect, are mobile, and are nuclear capable, and therefore reduce the threshold of any potential use of nuclear weapons in an armed conflict, of course that's a bad day for all of us who believe in arms control and stability in Europe. He added, at the same time, NATO is there to protect all our allies, and we will take the necessary measures to retain credible defense, end quote. The Secretary General of NATO made that statement, which says, well, okay, everything's going to hell, but we're still okay. We're NATO. If the Ruskies start feeling froggy, we'll jump. Nuclear war? Oh, well, it's survivable. God damn. Now, this new U.S. missile that the U.S. military is going to be testing, according to CNN, the test is expected to take place in the next few weeks and essentially will be something out of Donald Trump's fucked up brain and an answer to Russia's years-long noncompliance with this treaty, according to a senior U.S. defense official. A senior Trump official told reporters that the U.S. will be testing the cruise missiles that were forbidden by the INF treaty because, quote, Russia cannot maintain military advantage, end quote. I would imagine there's somebody in the Russian government saying to Putin, the United States cannot maintain nuclear advantage. So here we go. We have a psychopath in charge of the United States. I honestly believe that Putin is a psychopath too. But the Russians have suffered mega death on their own territory. Hitler wiped out 20 or 30 million of them, and prior to that, Stalin wiped out 20 or 30 million of them. Do you know what the population of Russia is today, as we're talking? About 140 million. What the population of the United States was when I was a goddamn 10-year-old. So Putin is Putin, there's no question, and I don't know a fucking thing about Putin except his history as it's been published. But I think inside Putin is a full and certain understanding of what mega death looks like and feels like and how it destroys a country, because it's happened to them, the Russians, a couple of times. Trump, on the other hand, Trump has no historical sense. He has no understanding about geopolitics. He doesn't give a shit about anything unless it somehow benefits him. And this sick fuck probably believes that the United States could launch a nuclear war and win, and the radiation would just disappear. It wouldn't come all over the planet. And in winning a nuclear war, then Donald Trump would be hailed as a global hero and installed as dictator for life. That's the kind of shit that goes on in this stable genius's mind. I know. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. You have your choice. You can listen to the ranting with the audio podcast or listen and watch me lose control with a video podcast subscription. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.